screen host, Landon Carrico, joined with you by color commentator HP. You may notice that the energy is lacking from our voices, and that's because HP and I have had nothing but blowouts to call for the last 3 games. And this one doesn't look like it's going to be any different as we get Kansas, the overall number 1 seed, against play-in 16 seed Prairie View. HP, I hate to break to you, this isn't going to get any better.
Yeah, this has been absolutely brutal so far. Hutch and Huber have had all of the good games thus far, barring an absolutely epic game where Prairie View A&M becomes the second 16 seed ever to win a game in the NCAA tournament. I think we're going to get more of the same here.
I think we are too. Not what I would call any amazing matchups. Perhaps Udoka Azubuike versus Devontae Patterson, but that's pretty much about it. So,
man, I feel like they didn't put Dotson's overall high enough in this game, but
I don't think they did either. Personally, I would have put Marcus Garrett maybe at a 75 myself, and Isaiah Moss is a little underrated.
Yeah, Kansas is way underrated in this game, honestly.
I agree. Perhaps Zona.
I think whoever made these rosters really messed up a couple things. Like, Arizona was way too good for, like, how good they actually were in college basketball this season.
Right.
Where Kansas overalls do not look nearly high enough. But, like, also, I didn't want to go through the process of making this whole roster, so more power to you, I guess. This has been a slog, and I can imagine making these teams were also a slog.
Yep. Shout out to Griffin, who did a lot of these. Our TNS commentator and co-host and overall great friend. So as Paul George, Jermaine O'Neal stare on for Prairie View and the Gasol brothers stare on for Kansas, we're going to get this one on the road because if we're being 100% folks, we kind of know what to expect here in this game. Another absolute blowout. So with that being said, Kevin Harlan gives some great life advice that I'm sure I'm not going to follow. HP, how bad do you think Kansas wins this one?
Kansas by 32 points.
I'll go 40. Actually, you know what?
We're going another historic blowout here. I suppose it'll work. But
no, I'll go 28.
28, all right.
I'll Price is right you here. I'll go 28. And as I say that, watch the wrong uniforms be on for each team. Oh no, we got that right this time. Udoka Azubuike is going to probably get the tip for Kansas here. And Kansas fans, I'm sorry for the lack of energy, but it is near midnight here at this household. And it's hard to get up for a 16-1 game. So with that being said, Linnell Henry. And they already turn it over. That's a great start if you ask me. It's a tough one. But wouldn't expect anything less. Abaji. Oh, Linnell Henry. Okay. Out to Ellis. Ellis with the lay. And he's fouled. Okay, HP. Not how I imagine this game starting. Chance Ellis with the steal. He goes to the free throw line. Splash. And he's going to hit it. Prairie View with probably the only lead they'll have all day today at 2-0. As Chris Webber and Greg Anthony do this call, I wince a little bit. Devin Dotson, one of the premier point guards in the entire country. He's going to go up here. He's not going to get the layup. Rebound by Lister. Lister out to Andrews. Not to be confused with Texas Rangers great Elvis Andrews. They get it down to Ellis. Ellis, 4-0. Prairie View on the board. Still don't think I'm wrong. But we're going to see HP. HP Kansas was a team that a lot of people had in the top 3, but there are certain question marks with that team. They had a few offseason additions as Udoka Azubuike goes up there. Most notably, Quentin Grimes transferring away from the program. And Love him or hate him, Bill Self's done an amazing job with his team. Do you expect in our simulation here for Kansas to take home the title? And HP is cutting out. Folks, I will take that as a yes.
Apologies, my mic.
There.
I forgot to turn my mic on. I would say I don't expect them to, just because this game seems to be a little bit more random than it was in real life. I don't think these rosters do Kansas enough credit. Honestly, they have 5 or 6 just awesome players. They go 9 deep in real life. Azubuike and Dotson were All-American level players for them this year. And then you got other players like Garrett, amongst others, who are just very, very, very good players that complement those two incredibly well. I don't think that they did. I just feel like there's a lot of very much parity. Like all the teams are the same across the board, with exceptions, obviously. But I don't think I would pick Kansas to win in this game. If I were doing a real life bracket, though, I would have chosen Kansas to win the national championship because I really do think they were the best team this year.
I agree. As much as it pains me to say that, I agree. As Dotson misses the point blank layup there, shockingly enough. Lister out to Ellis. Ellis to Patterson. Patterson, their best player this year, pacing the Panthers. And just trying to get a drive on to Dotson. He's going to take the layup, and he's going to knock it down. Prairie View proving us wrong right now. 8-6. 6:39 left to go. Devin Dotson with the layup, and he got it. Say the only mark for Kansas this year outside of, well, who has Kansas lost to this year? Baylor.
Lost against Duke in the first game of the season in the Champions Classic. They did drop one more game. I believe that one was at Villanova. Those are the only ones I remember, though, off the top of my head.
Didn't they lose to Baylor at Kansas?
Yeah, but they won at Baylor.
Right.
So, yes, that was what I was talking about. 28-3, so those were all of their losses on the year. Those three were.
Pretty solid resume. And then combined.
Yeah, I think they were pretty clearly the best team. Analytics had them 4 points better than the next team, which was Gonzaga and Ken Palm.
Yep.
I think, really, this would have been a very wide-open tournament in college basketball. I think it's a little more wide-open in-game, as we've seen by a couple massive upsets already that you might not have expected in real life. But, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how the tournament unfolds.
Mm-hmm. And I think the only other mark on Kansas season is that dreaded Kansas State brawl during the middle of the year, but Kansas obviously was able to rebound past that, no pun intended, and solidified themselves as the number 1 overall seed as Udoka Azubuike gets the rebound off the long miss to Devin Dotson. Dotson trying to look for a little real estate, can't find any, out to Marcus Garrett, back out to Azubuike. Azubuike at the elbow to Garrett with the take, no good. Rebound Azubuike, the man-child. Out to Dotson. Dotson picked away by Lister. And, I think it's interesting, HP. I think Udoka Azubuike is a guy that will have a somewhat productive NBA career. I don't think he'll be a star by any means, but with his overall build, he's a 7-foot giant that can really impact the game either way. I think some of the big ifs for him are his conditioning, his ability to stay out of foul trouble, and his lack of shooting, really. But I think if he can improve any of those, you could be looking at a long, possibly 10-year career in the NBA. But Udoka's been an absolute just behemoth of a college athlete, really been anchoring this Kansas squad in his time in Lawrence. As Prairie View calls a timeout with 4:03 left in the first.
Sorry, I did want to say something about Azubuike. I think he will have an NBA career. I think when you look at it's very hard to honestly talk about centers and the NBA at this point in time, just because one thing I've always really kind of rolled my eyes at when it comes to pro sports is that everyone kind of seems to just do what the successful team is doing in the moment, like i.e. the Saints talking about making Taysom 31-year-old Taysom Hill the guy who's thrown like what double-digit passes,
Is
low
he really
double-digit passes in his
31?
whole career because Lamar Jackson had a big year. Or everyone in the NBA trying to copy the Warriors because they were good for so long. When in reality, I've always disagreed with that. And you don't become the best by just trying to copy the best. I think honestly that Azubuike, I think he should have a role in an NBA team. And granted, I do think the concerns are legitimate about things like his mobility and his conditioning, especially playing with how basketball is played today. But I do think Azubuike, he was a great college player. I think he'll be a good NBA player. I think he can stick around the league for a while. I just don't necessarily expect him to be a star.
I agree. I think the person I always think of, not from a talent standpoint, but just their limitations and their overall build, kind of reminds me of a very much more talented Dakari Johnson. Just because I'm very familiar with UK. Like I said, very much more talented than Dakari Johnson. But possibly just somebody in that kind of build. And Dakari found some NBA success, not really playing much, but still being on a roster. And I think that's just the floor for Udoka. I think if he can improve on the stuff that we talked about earlier, then he definitely could be a guy that could be productive off the bench for a lot of NBA teams. Speaking of production, Kansas up 12-9 right now. Braun into the game for Kansas. Self goes to the bench pretty early here. Also brings Devin McCormick, their sixth man, in. And he's fouled on the layup by Jonathan Jackson. David McCormick, been a pretty reliable bench option for Self this year. Had a few spot starts. Silvio De Sousa also in the game. De Sousa, for a lot of Kansas fans, probably been very underachieving, a former four-star recruit that's probably best known in his time at Kansas for not only the Adidas scandal, but also the Kansas State-Kansas brawl. And while it may be unfair to say that about him, he has been surpassed by Devin McCormick on the depth chart for Kansas, but still has provided some valuable minutes for the Jayhawks this year. As Jackson tries to drive to the lane, he's got a little bit of an opening, and a shot clock violation just before he gets the shot off. Tristan Anaruna in the game. Tristan Anaruna's had some minutes. Kansas is the team that can go, as HP talked about, can go 9 deep pretty often, but their bench players don't play a heavy dose of minutes, usually around anywhere from about the 15 to 22 mark. Especially David McCormick being their sixth man. Usually when Azubuike's in foul trouble. And he goes with the reverse dunk. The big fella. Send it in, David. Then again, when you're doing plays like that, yeah, you can play as many minutes as you want. Bill's not going to keep you out of the game. And the foul on Devin Dotson. That's his first. HP, isn't it kind of like right around here is the time when the blowout starts to happen? With about a little left to go in the first quarter.
I don't know. Arizona just like beat the absolute crap out of LSU from the get-go. And really so did UK with Vermont. So, I mean, the routes have been on from the beginning.
Elliott at the top of the circle. Gets out to Anaruna. Elliott.
Landon, I have to ask, what is the score?
It is 15-11. Kansas gets their own rebound with 1:25 to go, and De Sousa gets his pocket picked. Fate Williams at the top of the wing, trying to find something with David McCormick on him. Jackson hits it to go. Kansas 15-13. Surprisingly a tight game with 1:03 left to go in the first. De Sousa out to Elliott. It's going to be interesting to see when Self goes back to his starters here, none of which are in the game right now. McCormick out to Braun. Braun, a pretty reliable shooter for Kansas this year when he's been in. And as soon as I say that, he misses, but McCormick comes up with the board, and he's pickpocketed by Sneed. Sneed out to Williams. Williams with the open three. No good. Rebound out to Anaruna. And the Jayhawks are running out to Elliott to Braun with the layup. No good, but he's fouled by Les Sneed. Snead's going to pick up his second. Could be going to the bench early. Braun's going to hit the free throw. Kansas up 16-13 with 20 seconds to go. Make that 16-15. Kansas is going to get the last possession here if they choose. 11 seconds to go. Out to McCormick. McCormick with the easy layup. He's going to have that size advantage all day. Let's see if he utilizes it. Prairie View racing the ball up the court to get one last shot with 2 seconds to go. Cox going to take the open three, and he's going to nail it. Tie game, 18-all with 10 left to go in the first. Prairie View sticking around with Kansas.
Man, Prairie View's hanging around here. Could we see another UMBC where they win by 40?
Whew.
Okay, if Prairie View wins, they're going to win via blowout because no one can win in the close game when me and Landon are calling the games.
You are right about that. Except this would be way worse since Prairie View is a playing game and Kansas is the overall number 1 seed. Braun with the layup. Good take. Braun providing some valuable minutes for Kansas. They're up 20-18. Williams at the top of the key. Jackson trying to bully McCormick, and he gets it. Roll around. Elliott, 2020, Kansas right now. Really surprised Self hasn't gone back to the starters just yet. Out to Elliott for the open three. No good. Rebound out to Prairie View. Williams has it. And Patterson with the dunk. 22-20 Prairie View. Speaking of dunks, HP, I just got a notification that said Cameron Walters, our esteemed friend here at TNS, dunked on a 10-foot goal today.
I think esteemed is giving him a bit too much credit.
Well, he dunked on a 10-foot goal today, so take it up with him if you will.
Well, Landon, do you have thoughts on this game so far? That's a rebound for Prairie View. They can go up 2 possessions here.
And then they do that. Turnover
Classic.
to McCormick. Elliott. They do not have numbers. Uh-oh. Kansas is bringing the cavalry in. Braun, they're not utilizing McCormick here. DeSosa, though, has the matchup, and he goes up with the layup. Gonna hit it. 22-22 Kansas. Prairie View A&M tied up here with 7:56 to go in the half. As HP and I watch this game, hopefully, I'm not saying a blowout's going to happen, but still feels like it's going to happen.
I'm watching about a 3-inch screen right now, a window on my computer, where I can kind of tell. I can tell which team is which. I can't see anybody's name though because the quality is quite low. So I'm attempting to watch this right now.
Well, here at TNS, we don't have the best resources, but we try and make do with what we've got.
Okay, this is an improvement from last game. In the UK game, it was down to 360 or 180p, so I couldn't even see the score on the screen.
Really?
Yeah, I couldn't see what the score was because it was too poor quality. This one I can at least see that it's 22-22 at the moment.
There you go.
Remember when Gonzaga and Southern went to overtime in 2013?
Yeah, and I thought Kelly Olynyk was going to go home early. And they did.
Well, they did. They lost to Wichita State the next game. Who went on to lose to the redacted team.
The redacted. I love how it's not the U of L team, it's the redacted team.
I love making jokes about this now. I do enjoy how people get so angry when they talk about the vacated title, but we just like to joke about. We just make fun of
They
We
won
joke about it as
because
the
even
redacted team.
I'll probably lose my UK card for saying this, but they won the title. You can't take that away from them. In my
Well, I
mind,
think that's what like 99% of people think. I think partially because the NCAA is just like a joke in general, but
Udoka with the putback, 24-22, Kansas. No, they won the title. They won the national championship. You cannot take that away from them. If you're going to say that UNC, what they did was perfectly legal with the fake classes, and that
classic.
let's UK and UofL fans can agree on this. UNC should have been punished a long time ago.
Oh God, UNC, yeah. It's just, I mean, the NCAA. I don't know, we're devolving into like NCAA talks. You know, it's a 116 game right now, even though this has been a good 116 game.
Yes.
I mean, really, when you look at the NCAA, like how many enemies they have made in college sports, how many like powerful programs just like dislike them as much as they do. You know, when you look at programs like Notre Dame has a very, very strong bone to pick with the NCAA, and so does USC. And I mean, you could go on and on and on and on and on with the programs that just absolutely just despise the NCAA. Ohio State.
What's the Notre Dame? What's the Notre Dame issue?
Missouri, not as much as those other schools as far as power in college football and basketball, but still, I mean, it's just they just have no credibility as an organization at this point. The NCAA doesn't. It would not surprise me, honestly, if one day the NCAA no longer existed, and you know schools just broke away from it, like major college sports schools that probably would be mostly just football schools for the most part that did that. And I mean, it would not be great for college basketball, which is as an entity is essentially at this point totally different from college football. You know, as a whole, college basketball is that the NCAA exercises so much control.
Marcus Garrett with the
and
N1. Sorry, HP. Marcus Garrett with the tough N1 to put Kansas up 6. Now, what Notre Dame scandal are you referring to?
Yeah, I think this one was either a year or 2 years ago. I can't remember. Notre
Right.
Dame, it was the 2012 championship they appeared in, got vacated,
Yep.
or quote unquote vacated, of course.
Yes, of course.
Over, like, it was something really weird. It was like a tutor was like a little too helpful.
It
was really dumb.
They were too
really
good at their
dumb.
job.
Like 99% of NCAA cases, it was stupid, as you could probably guess. But
it's how arbitrary they are, though. Like, for example, like
exactly,
I'm not trying to pick on, I'm not trying to pick on UNC or Duke, which I've done on the show, but I'm trying to be neutral here, like legitimately. But the UNC fake classes should have been punished a long time ago. The NCAA lost its respect in the eyes of a lot of people when they said it was outside of their jurisdiction and it was an academic matter.
Right, yes, you're absolutely right on that one. It's just so bizarre when you like look at how these decisions are enforced, and it's how it's just basically it's almost random. Honestly, at times, you know, Syracuse a while back had a pretty good amount of penalties levied against them. That's another school I can think of that might not think too highly of the NCAA.
Well, look at Duke.
I mean, you just like look, you just go down the list over and over and over and over. At how many schools? Indiana, they got a lot of arbitrary punishment from over the Kelvin Sampson phone call case or whatever, and that set them back quite a while.
And that's not even a rule anymore.
I know, it's not even a rule anymore, and it's was huge thing for Indiana that took years to recover from. I mean, I work out of schools with a lot of power in the NCAA just hate the NCAA, and with good reason. I mean, they line their own pockets, and that's really about it. They enforce decisions based on what is good for them politically more so than what's fair or what's honest. So, I mean, it's just like, as a whole, like, the whole thing's pathetic. I mean, it will be interesting to see, honestly, for the NCAA, you know, the FBI paying players scandal, you know, that still is in progress, and to be frank with you, I believe less than half of the schools that were involved in that case have even been charged with their infractions so far. I believe there's 4. I believe Kansas is 1. I also believe NC State has gotten their notice of allegations.
Right.
I think there's 2 more. But, I mean, it's really interesting when you look at all this, what's going on, how long it is taking them to do this. This scandal was almost 2.5, 3 years ago now, and nobody cares about it anymore.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
schools like Louisville that were involved in it, Louisville has not even gotten their notice of allegations. It could be a year or multiple years before you even know what the NCAA's, I guess, chosen punishment would be for the rules that they broke in the Brian Bowen scandal. So it's just a very weird time, honestly, to be like watching college basketball and athletics from a distance. And then you throw in the fact that the coronavirus has shut so much down that everything's going to be delayed even more of an already overworked NCAA staff room for investigations. So
Right.
yeah, it's bizarre. It's kind of I'm on a diatribe about the NCAA here, but Prairie View A&M Kansas is pulling ahead just a little bit here.
Just
They
a
got them
little
at
bit.
9.
Kansas up 37-28 with 148 left to go in the first half. Jackson takes it to the cup, steps back, brings out to Ellis, out to Sneed at the top. Lister down to Jackson, back to Sneed, back to Ellis. Out to Henry with the contested jumper. Front iron, no good. Out to Braun.
Prairie View A&M looks a little bit tired already. Lots of short jumpers here.
Braun's playing a lot of minutes for Kansas today, probably because Devin Dotson was in foul trouble earlier, but Devin Dotson's back in the game for the Jayhawks.
Does Mitch Lightfoot still play for Kansas?
Yes.
Does he really?
I
don't think I've seen him in a game this year.
He might be injured, I think. I thought the same
that
thing.
makes sense then.
He's on this roster, though. So, I'm not entirely sure.
It's kind of weird that Bill Self and Kansas were in the Final Four 2 years ago, and I really don't even remember that at all.
Oh yeah. Who did they? They lost to. No,
they lost pretty convincingly. I want to say they lost by Villanova by about 10 points or so right. In the Final Four.
That was when they beat Duke. Remember that Elite Eight game?
That was a great game. Yeah, Duke almost won at the buzzer in that game, actually, and it just barely came off the rim. But Kansas ended up winning that game.
Yeah, that was revenge.
Erica a favor on that one.
We can both agree that was revenge for all of Grayson Allen's antics over the years. The hope.
Just the absolute worst, Grayson Allen.
Can we put
him? His reincarnation, I guess, in Brad Davison this year, but unfortunately, Wisconsin, as a program, has been pretty likable over time, and much less, for reputation.
Not for me.
Duke for being the dislikable program or whatever, and so that was kind of took away from that.
Hate to break THP, but for this guy, Wisconsin's not likable.
Oh, sorry, kid.
They ruined the 38-0 team. I can never forgive them for that.
I still think if UK would have won that game, it would have been such a struggle to win that game. They would have lost to Duke in the next one.
To this day, I actually think they would have beaten Duke just because of how I think matchup-wise they matched up pretty well. I think Willie Cauley-Stein's length. If you look at Jaleel Oakford's season, that was the one thing he struggled with was length. So I think Willie could have shut him down because I think Karl Anthony Towns they would have switched off. But that would have been a heck of a matchup. But yeah, that game.
Sheesh, that was the year Louisville was a mango free throw away from the Final Four for the third time in 4 years.
Yeah, crazy stuff.
Big sigh.
Crazy stuff. As Kansas leads Prairie View A&M 37-30 at the half, a comfortable lead though for Kansas.
I mean, Kansas is in control here, but Prairie View A&M is at least they've gotten a little bit going this half. Kind of stalled a little bit on offense toward the end there. Kansas made a little bit of a run, but 7-point deficit. You'd take it if you're Prairie View A&M going into this.
Absolutely, especially against the number one team in the country.
Yeah, halftime entertainment things are absolutely hilarious to see.
Now, the 2015 NCAA tournament, I think, is one of the best in recent memory, even as a UK fan.
That Final Four was an amazing group, besides Michigan State, who just wasn't very good that year.
Oh, but, yeah. They were like a 7? Weren't they a 7?
Yeah, they were a 7, yes. I remember. Michigan State was a 7. They really were totally outclassed from start to finish by Duke in that game. But UK and Wisconsin, that is widely considered one of the greatest college basketball games ever played. I've always thought it's really unfortunate for Wisconsin that they couldn't win that. I really feel Wisconsin deserved to win that game against Duke. It wouldn't have been their first national championship in school history. Actually, I believe they won one of either the 40s or 50s, obviously. And I mean, don't get me wrong, nobody cares. But
I think
I don't know. I really wanted to see that group win the championship though, because I do think since they did beat that UK team, they were the best team in that tournament that year, or I guess they played the best. The thing is, they just ran out of gas at the end of it.
I think that's the applicable statement for UK too. I would still take that team, and over Duke or Wisconsin, and a best of
No,
seven.
UK was the best team that
In a
year,
best of
obviously.
seven, I would take them. But that's not what the tournament is. It's not a best of seven. But unfortunately, that is the angriest. And keep in mind, you were there when the Notre Dame game happened in the Elite Eight, and how kicked I was then. The Wisconsin game is the angriest I've ever gotten in my entire life at a single sporting event. Because
Me, Griffin, and Reese were watching the game in my basement, and we were like wondering, like, has Landon like put his head through the wall yet?
It was close.
And the answer was yes, he had put his head through the wall.
The second angriest I've ever gotten in my life during a sporting event is basketball, and it's the 2012 IU UK game. Because I knew I got
in the tournament.
No. In the regular season,
the first.
as Kansas extends the lead to 7 with the Isaiah Moss jumper. No, that is the second angriest I've ever gotten in my life. Notre Dame game 2015 is probably the third. I don't get that angry about tennis just because there's so many matches in the year, and so many tournaments. There's only one. I mean, in conference tournament, yes, but there's only one big overarching tournament in college basketball, so it's kind of harder to contain your excitement as opposed to the 4 majors and the World Tour Finals for tennis. But yeah, that was a very tough pill to swallow watching that 2015 game, especially when so many guys left. Like even Dakari Johnson left. Dakari Johnson didn't play at all for that team. He was part of the second platoon, which that's another topic for Calipari fans that nobody ever wants to talk about because of how bad it affected recruiting was the platoon stats. And HP, you talked about that on why Cal hasn't been able to get elite recruits in years.
I do think that platoon system did really hurt him. Yeah, I do kind of think it hurt the team a little bit too at times because sometimes they like. I feel like it was kind of a momentum stifler at times, even though Cal did go away from that. Cal very obviously did go away from the platoon when it came to crunch time. He just put the best players out there. Yep. But yeah, I do think it was tough for him to recruit given that, there was totally possible that you could only be seeing like 20 minutes a game regardless.
Absolutely. That's for years why UK, I think, has lost out on recruits. And that's not to downgrade any coaches. Coach K is one of the best recruiters of all time. Bill Self's an amazing recruiter. Tom Izzo. Even Jim Boeheim, a big X's and O's guys, has still landed Carmelo Anthony, and even Elijah Hughes this year, who was a 5-star coming out of high school. But when you look at that and the bane of Calipari's existence, it's been to always get those elite recruit guys. And after 2016, you started to see those lack of 5-stars come in. And 2016 was a good class. I mean, you got Jamal Murray, and Tyler Eulis came back. You brought in Isaiah Briscoe, who, even though he was underwhelming at his time, was still, good. So yeah, it definitely hurt. Speaking of hurt, though, Prairie View A&M down 10. Kansas starting to slowly turn the tide here, though, as Lister tries to take it to the cup. Lister out to Andrews. 44-34 with 5. Oh, make that 36-44 as Andrews hits the jumper with 15:38 left to go in the game. Kansas is only up 8 right now. HP, if you're a Kansas fan, would you be concerned right now?
Not quite. I think they're still in control right now. Prairie View's gotten a little bit more going on offense in this quarter than the last one, but I think overall, Kansas is nothing to really worry about yet. You would think the superior athleticism and talent takes over here, but I guess this is a video game. This is not real life, so we will have to see.
Right you are, HP.
We were talking about the draft class here a couple minutes ago, like in the TNS group message while we were doing this game. And this is such an underwhelming draft class for the most part.
Tell them who's in the lottery. Go ahead, tell them who's in the lottery.
Do you think LaMelo Ball will go number 1 overall with the fact that you can't work out and there's not going to be interviews or anything like that for, due to the coronavirus?
Yeah. I mean, Anthony Edwards, LaMelo Ball, James Wiseman. Who else would be up there?
I would say those three are probably the top three if I had to guess. Kind of depends on who wins the lottery and like who has the best fit. Maybe someone I don't know. Other top prospects, R.J. Hampton maybe.
Can you imagine?
Uh,
Can you imagine LaMelo Ball going to the Warriors?
Killian Hayes out of France. Onyeka Okongwu out of USC. Man, he was way off the radar this year, but had a pretty good year.
Yeah. And the missed jumper out to Garrett Moss leading the charge for the Jayhawks. Yeah, these next two classes though for basketball, they're going to be down. They're very much.
Yeah, I definitely think, last year, it was a great class last year, especially because, when you have three, I know we've touched on this before already, but when you have Zion and John Morant and RJ Barrett, who are all elite draft prospects in their own right last year, to go to a year right now when you could argue that there's none, or maybe that the two closest would be LaMelo Ball and James Wiseman probably would be I would guess would be who people would say would be the closest to an elite prospect. Next year kind of looks like that too, to be honest. I think a lot of GMs, to be honest with you, Landon, are stockpiling picks for the 2023 draft, which is, I don't know if you all know this, like the audience at home watching, but the 2023 draft, that will be the first year where you will have both the one and done players and the high school players heading into the draft that year. So that'll be almost kind of like a double draft that year, where you can get where you can even get first round talent well into the second round in that draft. So I think that is something that I would watch for sure. But this year's draft, I think a lot of it, who goes number one, will depend on who wins the lottery. I think if it's the Warriors, James Wiseman would certainly, I think, be the pick there. I don't think they're ready to bring on someone like LaMelo Ball, who will need the ball in his hands, and take that away from Curry. Even though I think Curry could adapt to playing more off ball, and I think LaMelo Ball could be a worthy pick there. I think they'd be more likely to go Wiseman. I don't know. It really depends on who wins the lottery, though. It's a very down year in the draft, though. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, if you make a good point. Curry would go back to the Mark Jackson style offense when they had him and Monte Ellis and Klay Thompson playing together, which was lethal. So you would see a lot of sets run for Curry still, but he would not be the primary guy on the ball like you pointed out. Just DeSosa gets the rebound. So I think it'd be interesting. I am in the camp though. I would almost think it would make more sense for them to draft James Wiseman. Because I get what they're trying to run, but I still think having a presence like Wiseman who can help on the defensive end for an aging Curry and an aging Thompson, and we don't even know what they're going to do with Andrew Wiggins. So it'll be interesting to see what that pick is. I think between the three of them, between Edwards, Ball, and Wiseman, they can't go wrong. I think those are, like when we talk about Zion, and R.J. Barrett, those are all elite prospects. They're going to have long NBA careers, and they're going to be all-stars. Now, two of those look better than the one because R.J. Barrett's playing in New York. But
exactly.
Yeah, but for
poor R.J.
Sheesh. As Anarunu with the layup, Kansas pulling away now 53-36. But I think you can't go wrong if you're in that in the top three there, because I think those are all three potential NBA All Stars and All Pro players. They're
Anthony Edwards, I've gotten to watch him a little bit this year, and really he is a real standout out on the court. You can tell that he is physically an imposing player, but also I saw him play a couple games, against Chaminade. Obviously, that is like him playing against for Anthony Edwards, obviously, that is not exactly
no
great competition. I did see him get to play against UK, where I believe he actually had a pretty rough game against the Cats.
Dominated the first half.
Athens.
Dominated the first half. Did not show up in the second half. In the big knock,
I think Anthony Edwards, though, I think if you're a team, I think a Warriors kind of team would actually be an interesting fit. Obviously, they will not take Anthony Edwards if they get the number one overall pick.
No.
I think Anthony Edwards, of those three players, might be the one that could help you the most right now. He has a very NBA-ready game. He has a very well-rounded skill set overall. He's a great scorer as well. And I think, really, even though he wasn't surrounded with great players at Georgia. I think if Nick Claxton had went back, that could have been a tournament team this year for Georgia. And Crean, for better or for worse, he's a decent, maybe a good coach. He's definitely not a great coach. He's definitely not going to elevate the team much higher than their potential, as opposed to another coach might. But I mean, it was a disappointing year for Georgia, but I thought I saw a lot of good things from Anthony Edwards this year.
I think the main steps that Anthony Edwards needs to take, and a reason why I think Golden State would benefit more from taking LaMelo Ball or James Wiseman, and I'll explain why, is because the knock on Edwards are very contrarian to what you need to do in a Steve Kerr system. One of those is great court vision and passing. I
agree with that.
I think Edwards is a great scorer.
Yeah, he can be prone to tunnel vision sometimes.
Exactly. And as a passer, I think he needs to work on that. And in a Steve Kerr system, which is another, what the heck was that? I wouldn't want to play.
This is a 116 game, folks.
But I think a big reason, man, that was bad. A big reason why Golden State would not pick Anthony Edwards is because of that very reason. He kind of reminds me in a sense of Wiggins. I think he's better than Wiggins. He'll have a better career than Andrew Wiggins. But I think LaMelo Ball is a better passer. He gets Steph and Clay going. It's easier to run sets to him as David McCormick with the poster dunk and the foul.
Yeah, poor Prairie View's just been getting the doors blown off him. I wonder if this surprise Landon and HP call another blowout.
Let's just agree we're not doing the national championship if this is going to keep happening.
Yeah, we're going to have to let Hutch and Huber do the national championship.
Once again, folks, for those listening, a shout out to Hutch and Huber, who have done an amazing job with this show. They've been doing a joint production with us in our 2K March Madness Sim bracket. If you haven't looked at their fine work, go check them out at Hutch and Huber on Twitter. Capital H and Hutch, capital H and Huber, as the Jayhawks to get a shot clock violation from the Panthers. And their YouTube page, Hutch and Huber. Subscribe to them. You can also find us on the neutral site. Feel free to subscribe to us, as well as our own Twitter page, at Neutral Site Show. Capital N, capital S, in both site and show. Back to the action, though, as Garrett shoots an off-foot three that, from the logo, that's just not going to work. However, what's been working for Kansas, though, is just about everything, as they're up 59-36 going into the fourth, which basically is the final 10 minutes of the second half. HP, how do we get stuck with all the blowouts?
Well, Bryce would tell you, or Sterling, I don't remember which one. Oh, I do have to say this so far. I've watched a couple of Bryce and Sterling's games. I still don't know who's who. I know, that's terrible. I still don't know which one is which. I'll have to watch the beginning when they introduce themselves so I know from now on. But I thought we drafted some pretty good games, honestly. We got Utah State and Iowa. You and Carson got that one.
And it was a blowout.
I believe Utah State won that game, so that's an upset, I guess.
Yep.
I'm trying to think. I know I went with a couple ACC games because I would know what I'm talking about for those teams, but I think we got Duke tomorrow on the docket. We could be wrong, though.
No, that is correct. As Braun takes it to the cup. Yeah, tomorrow's content, I believe, will be better.
I hope so. We watched a 40-point blowout today.
Yeah, it doesn't get much worse than that, actually.
That might be the worst thing I think I have ever watched in a basketball game. Like I said earlier, that would be in real life, that would tie for the second biggest blowout in the history of the tournament. That one would have been.
Well, Jared and I did Florida State Little Rock, which was also a blowout. Let's see, what else? Tomorrow, HP, we have Duke Bradley.
If Bradley beats Duke, we are going to tweet about that until you cannot tweet anymore.
We've got a good 8-9 matchup. We also have Houston, Florida, which would be a good one, and then West Virginia and Stanford. Those should be good games. I think we have West Virginia, Stanford. Let me look at our docket.
It's crazy right now.
Yes, we do.
This is a tweet from Ethan Moore of LSL. Crazy to think that we'd normally be watching the Elite Eight games right now. That is unbelievable. This all the conference tournaments getting canceled feels. It was about two and a half weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like about 3 months ago.
Yep. HP, we have Houston, Florida tomorrow, Duke Liberty, and WVU and Stanford. Those are actually some decent games.
You mean Duke Bradley instead of Duke Liberty?
Did I say Liberty? Yes, Duke Bradley.
Yeah, you said Liberty.
Joke's on you. Liberty made the Final Four already, as did Duke.
God, St. Mary's beat Texas Tech, too. This is just ridiculous, honestly. They've gotten some good games. This was only a 9-point game, 87-78. Also false. There's no way a Texas Tech game would have that many points in it.
Oh, cool, HP. We got another follower from a guy named Pastor Mike Faust. He's a UK fan, so that's cool. Finally, we have a UK fan that watched.
I was about to say, we have a UK fan that follows our account now.
Dude, UK, I'm kind of shocked, though. We don't have more UK followers, but U of L and IU, shout out to you guys. You guys have helped grow our podcast pretty exponentially in the last year. Continue to show us some love, if you will. We dedicate a lot of our time because we have 2 IU fans on the show, one dedicated, steadfast U of L fan, and then me, a diehard UK fan. But I still don't see everything with blue tinted glasses. I don't think. HP may think different. Debatable, yes. I'm working on it. HP, we're up to, Hutch and Huber are up to 23 likes off of the New Mexico State game.
I wish we had 23 likes on our stream. That would be nice. This sounds so pathetic, me talking about, I wish we had 23 likes on our video. That would be nice.
We've had 100 before. Remember the Kawhi Leonard one? As T-Hand hits the 3.
No, we've had a couple good tweets in our history. We've gotten some. We've hit triple digits a couple of times on likes and retweets, but still, we appreciate publicity in any form.
Except if it's one of us doing something stupid in a parking lot. Other than that, we'll take just about anything. Also, we had somebody tweet us, says, where are these rosters at? How do you get them?
I really have no idea, honestly.
Secret recipe. That's all I'm going to say. It's about as secret as the Krabby Patty formula. T-Hand gets another 3. Oh, he's going to knock it down again. Oh, HP, this is just getting worse and worse.
It's up to 32 points. All right, so Louisville won by 27. UK won by how much again today?
UK won, what was the final score? Off the top of my head, it was...
I'll just look it up.
It was...
Arizona won by 44. U of L won by 27.
84-58. UK won 84-58.
Good God. The average by the end of the day is going to be like a 35-point blowout for all of our games.
This is bad. T-Hand out to McCormick at the top. What's the Monty Python thing you always tell me? Get on with it! It's kind of how I feel about the end of this game right now. If somebody wants to chuck the holy hand grenade and the screen glitches and it's over, I wouldn't be too upset. As McCormick puts Kansas up 36. I gotta admit, this might be the lowest energy I've ever had commentating one of these games.
Yeah, I mean, yes.
And we've got some good ones tomorrow. Like Duke Bradley is not going to be a bad one, I don't think. But it's not going to be a great one either. Houston, Florida should be good. And then West Virginia, Stanford has potentials of upset alert, even though I think West Virginia should pull through. Oh well, back to the action though. Wilson. Jalen Wilson's an interesting case for Kansas this year. Somebody that initially committed to Michigan, decommitted, was a top 50 recruit, committed to Bill Self, and hasn't really seen many minutes at all this year. Indication was he might think about transfer.
That was an interesting one, to be honest with you. I remember that. He did commit to John Beeline's team.
And the rumor was that this offseason he'd be thinking about transferring. In the last 3 days, he's come out and said that he doesn't plan on leaving. Possibly a great asset for Kansas next year. And that's one thing that I will credit Bill Self with, even though, I think Bill Self has run afoul of the rules many times, but, obviously they haven't proven anything. So if it is what it is, it is what it is. But he's been able to take guys that weren't, overall as the layup there by Williams. He's taken guys that were either not, truly, and I hate to say that truly important, but they weren't big minutes guys, and then converts them the next year to guys that are ready to go and contribute. And I think that's his calling card as a coach. You want to talk about Calipari as a recruiter, Jim Boeheim is a great X's and O's guy, strategy-wise. I think that's Bill Self as a motivator to get his guys from the previous year to play like stars, even with limited time in that prior year. And then there's Coach K, who just pretty much does just about everything. But then there's Chris Mack, who disapprovingly looks at his players and scares the living heck out of them not to ever do it again. That's a skill, I think.
Then we get the goofy meme, and then they do it again.
You mean Chris Mack with hair?
Well, not quite. I was talking about that one goofy meme, but yes,
oh, yeah.
Chris Mack with hair. I think that's probably the biggest storyline out of this tournament for the games we've called so far is Chris Mack magically growing hair on 2K.
Chris Mack. HB, do you believe there's any validity though to Chris Mack having or being on the hot seat?
Oh God, absolutely not. Why would Chris Mack be on the hot seat?
Because you crazy U of L fans are posting about it on Card Chronicle. I don't know.
I mean, I will say it has been quite a while since I've taken a trip to the message boards for comedic purposes. I would say, though, to be honest with you, this is such a weird year for college basketball because, Louisville and Kentucky, they both had, good years compared to, what you'd expected them to do in the preseason. But the thing is, because you didn't get their conference tournament or NCAA tournaments, you really don't necessarily get that validating moment for championships, because the only championships won this year were regular season tournament titles.
Right.
It's nice because teams like Kansas and Florida State will get recognition that they deserve for winning their conference, but it just feels kind of empty that we haven't gotten the NCAA and the conference tournament titles to be handed out this year.
Mm-hmm.
So, I would say I think Chris Mack's been doing a good job. I think last year, I guess, against expectations was definitely a better year than this year. I think it will be interesting to see what happens going forward with I guess the players that come in next year, and now that we're getting more Chris Mack guys, I guess, this sounds bad. I hate making this point because I always laugh at Indiana fans that make this point because I think Archie is just not a good basketball coach for the Hoosiers. But I think it'll be interesting to see what happens whenever when Louisville gets more Chris Mack recruits on the team, I guess. Because, I feel like someone like a Jay Scrubb fits what Louisville wants to do now more than a Darius Perry, who is very much meant to come in and play for Rick Pitino. So it'll be interesting because a lot of the recruits are, highly ranked recruits, obviously, as in top 100 guys, kind of more of your mid-tier 4-star kind of guys that he's brought in,
Yep.
Josh Nickelberry didn't get a ton of playing time this year. Jalen Withers redshirted. Quinn Slazinski didn't get much playing time. Aiden Agahan did not get much playing time either. And then they bring in the recruiting class of, I might get the names wrong, it'll be DeAndre Davis, Jay Scrubb, hopefully, and JJ Traynor. So it'll be interesting to see if those guys fit better. I kind of felt that a few players on Louisville didn't fit great for Chris Mack.
Yep.
But we'll see. Next year will be a good year to see where they are at as a program.
Last
and
point.
Kansas wins.
Yes, Kansas wins.
Another epic blowout of how many points is that?
81-48. HP, before we round off, though, you know who JJ Traynor reminds me a lot of?
I don't know. Are you going to make a Montrezl Harrell comparison?
God, no. Ray Spalding.
Ray Spalding, that's a good comparison, actually. I do kind of like that.
Well, if he has any near the career Ray Spalding did, he's going to turn out pretty well. Speaking of turning out pretty well, Udoka Azubuike paces Kansas with 14, as does David McCormick. Christian Braun has 9. Meanwhile, Prairie View, paced by Chance Ellis, is 10. Devontae Patterson's 8. Folks, we thank you for being with us on this late night. We'll have more material tomorrow. Be sure to check us out. We'll be probably starting our broadcast sometime in the early afternoon. Once again, if you haven't checked us out, subscribe to our channel, The Neutral Site, or check us out at Neutral Site Show. Also check out Hutch and Huber at Hutch and Huber, who we've been doing a joint production with. And if you really like our stuff, let us know. Follow us on Twitter, and we'll have more content tomorrow. Until then, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you soon.